The truth is, you've been brainwashed. And this is how we got here. You see, it all began on the afternoon of January 15th, 1902. A secretive meeting that changed the course of history as we knew it was about to take place in none other, of course, than the Rockefeller townhouse in Manhattan. And the records state that a middle-aged man walked into a meeting room full of lawyers, bureaucrats, and in the presence of one of his closest advisors, signed the deed of trust that formally established an organization that would deeply impact the lives of generations to come. That man was John D. Rockefeller, and his closest advisor, a particular man with a deep connection in Washington. On that afternoon in 1902, they founded what would later be known as the General Education Board.
All right, well, Oregon has decided that students do not need to be proficient in reading, writing, and math in order to graduate high school. So what do you do to graduate high school in Oregon? You just show up, I guess. Probably that's not even a requirement. The Board of Education unanimously voted to extend a pause on graduation requirements that were put in place during the pandemic. Watch how this news is reported.
For the next 5 years, high school students in Oregon will not need to perform proficiency tests showing mastery of reading, writing, or math in order to graduate. And this comes as the Oregon Board of Education unanimously voted to extend a pause on the graduation requirement yesterday until 2028. They're citing inefficiency and inequity. Joelle Jones going beyond the headlines tonight to find out what this pause will mean for students.
This is a controversial decision and one that's facing a lot of pushback. While some say the decision will lower state standards and cheapen an Oregon diploma, the Oregon Department of Education tells me this policy simply didn't work and disproportionately harmed students of color.
Okay, so this is what Douglas Murray calls teaching to the slowest kid in the class. What will happen to us all if we lower not only a commitment to excellence, but a commitment to the minimum? We're not saying we no longer have this high standard. We're saying now we have no standard. That's terrifying. We're not talking about... Go ahead, please.
This is the nucleus of the movie Idiocracy. It's like, these are the decisions.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's like, think about it. If there's like, this affects people of color, instead of saying what we should do is help them more, and all that, but no, let's just, if it affects people of color, let's just, take it down to the lowest common denominator and let everybody graduate without. That just makes no sense to me.
Let's figure out exactly, well, why are they slower? Why are they not doing as well in math?
Well, there is a lot of research about why. I'm going to talk about it later, but we're basically telling them you cannot be expected, right? And anyone else who has done well, who is a student of color or low income, is just some kind of superhero. And that's probably not you, so you should not try. Now, we're not talking about competing with China or Japan or Russia right now. In fact, though, did you know that wealthier parents in the United States are paying extra so that their children take Russian math? This is now a new explosion in popularity, is this Russian math. Here's the Wall Street Journal in February saying how Russian math became a must-have extracurricular for overreaching students. Now, this is because we have realized that our own educational system is so substandard that we have to look at how other countries continue to have a commitment to excellence, because we can't trust what our system has now. In fact, whereas there is a commitment to excellence in Russia, we have none, right? We're saying no commitment to excellence, no commitment to anything. Many of these U.S. parents are just tired of the politics of education, and they want their kids to have a solid education of topics without a discussion about whether or not you can absorb those topics based on your skin color.
Power-hungry teachers' unions held children's education hostage to secure multiple multi-billion-dollar ransom payments from taxpayers. But they overplayed their hand and awakened a sleeping giant, parents who want more of a say in their kids' education. The teachers' unions engaged in fear-mongering every step of the way. The American Federation of Teachers, for example, threatened safety strikes in 2020, lobbied the CDC to make it more difficult to reopen schools in person, and their boss, Randy Weingarten, called the president's plan to reopen schools reckless, callous, and cruel. Chicago Teachers Union deleted a tweet claiming that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. They threw everything at the wall to see what would stick. Yet one of their board members was caught vacationing in Puerto Rico in person while still railing against going back to work in person. Evidence showed that in-person school did not spread COVID, but school closures were a super spreader of COVID learning loss. The unintended benefit of remote learning, which we really should have just called remotely learning, because not a lot of learning was going on, was families got to see what was going on in the classroom. Parents who thought their kids were in a great public school started to see another dimension of school quality that cannot be captured by a standardized test, whether the school's curriculum aligns with their values.
I would like to go over my Sixth Circuit case, and this is why it's important. See, the ladies in Texas, when they went through for their mask mandate, vax mandate lawsuits, they used certain specific laws to mandate that parents have the right to represent their kids. But I went in with the 1983, which is one of the most difficult. In fact, most of the case law made to disallow parents from representing their children ever was based on that. And so it was just a couple days ago that we had our oral arguments in the Sixth Circuit. So the Fifth Circuit, based on the laws that were used that were not 1983, said parents have the right to represent their kids' rights. In my case, which is the Sixth Circuit, I'm in the Sixth Circuit, Kavanaugh oversees this, right? In the Sixth Circuit, it is where most of the case law has been made that parents are not allowed to speak on behalf of their children. So what's interesting is that I took one of the biggest fights is to undo case law. The judges themselves said, my case will set precedent. Now, there's a lot of outcomes that can come. Personally, I would appreciate if the Sixth Circuit came back and said, fuck no. We're going to uphold what the federal court said to Tori, and she can't represent her kid, so masks are happening. Now, there was a lot of misinformation stated by the council representing Mayfield City High Schools talking about the mask mandate. He forgot one key aspect of it. When I filed it, I said that they're pretending to use health care. Mask and vax the kids in order to get over $3 million. That was the use health care. But in fact, they need to mask and vax the kids in order to get over $3 million. That was the premise of my lawsuit that I filed in 2021. It's 2023. This is how long it takes, right? They drag their feet. So in 2021, I had filed an injunction. I wanted to get a temporary restraining order against the Mayfield City High School because the superintendent came out and said, everyone's wearing masks, didn't console anyone. They had like YouTube videos telling people that that's what's happening, but no comments were allowed. Weeks later, they allowed comments in. But the fact of the matter is, in order for them to get the money, they needed to do that. And they lied and said that they were doing it for healthcare reasons. And it turns out throughout my case, and as the months went by, as I'm sitting there waiting at the federal court for over a fucking year to get this done, the federal court comes back. I sent the paperwork from the Department of Treasury that said, hey, in order for them to get the money, here it is, they had to mask the kids. So that was my argument, yet, as you will hear, the attorney for the school didn't state it. But as you will also hear, the judges were appalled that, I wasn't allowed to represent my kid in a scenario where it's a TRO, where I'm seeking a temporary restraining order. Because that's unacceptable, because the high school was saying, oh, well, she can ask damages after she's 18. So after the damage is done, the kid's coming in. Wait, we'll address that too. So I wanted to start with that so you guys can actually hear what we've actually done. Because considering the Fifth Circuit in Texas did it, depending on where you filed your case in your state, under what laws you use in regards to federal civil remedies, yours can be resurrected almost immediately. And I know in the state of Ohio, we have at least 10 cases that were filed